some hybrid students online, so I'm going to go ahead and record this. Let me just check to make sure that it's running like I want it to. Yes. Okay. You guys have seen this before, but for the sake of my online students, we're going to go over this spiel real quick. At the very least, welcome to my Mini Europes class. Western Civ until 1689. Yeah, that's probably not the proper year we're going to. I think 1453 is probably the proper year. We'll be going to the end of, if we get there, to be perfectly honest. We'll see. That's when Constantinople falls, and Europe has to start looking westward. So, you guys know me. You guys already know this hasn't changed at all, sleep deprivation. Although I did remove this last time, but now it needs to be back. I'm back doing security at night to make loose ends, to help make ends meet. So, sleep deprivation's back, baby. You know and again, for you online students, you're going to miss these wonderful references. Not the main entrance, but the one over by the roundabout. When you come in and there's that cardboard boy sitting there that's been there for years now. He just got left behind during one of the art fields things. The artist just left him. So he's known. So we call him our little orphan. When I came in this morning, I fully expected him to turn and look at me. That's how sleep deprived I am right now. So that's the point we're starting at. History, again, you guys have seen this. We'll start with Alexander the Great. His conquest, just kind of in general. Who was involved? Alexander the Great. Awesome. What did he do? He conquered pretty much most of the known world. He got a lot done in a short period of time. It's still kind of hard to really fathom what happened there. Once we get to it, you guys will kind of see, because up until that point, things were very static in the world. And then he just sort of happened, and yeah. Where was this? Mostly Persia, Greece, Europe. He started to move down into Saudi Arabia, but that's later. When is the 330s to 320s BCE, which, again, you guys have had my class before. You know that I'm not too big on dates unless I point at it and say, boy, guys, this looks like an important date that should probably be remembered. So, that's how that goes. So, the why and how of it is, of course, why we're here. How did a man in his mid-20s conquer pretty much the entire known world? Cavalry, infantry, charisma, subterfuge. And like I said, we really aren't entirely sure. A little bit of everything. And also, after all of this, and he was still planning on more conquest, he died of alcohol poisoning. They had and malaria, but everybody had a little bit of malaria back then. They had a big party after one of his conquests, and he literally drank himself to death. Now, I'm going to do a little conspiracy. Maybe poison, but I feel like that probably would have gotten out by now that somebody poisoned the guy, because that's not a very subtle thing. You think, oh, there's poison, and you just get sick and dies. That's when you hemlock poison somebody, you can tell. So seems like it was alcohol poisoning, and the malaria made him weak, so he just was not able to handle it. Okay, so we talked about this last year with you guys, but I got cat hair all over my book. I wonder why. But now this is important for, well, we'll go over it more specifically in the notes when we do the notes on Monday. But the historical lens is actually going to be something you guys need to remember. So again, we'll go over it again on notes day, but this stuff is so dirty. Cat's sitting on it for a year. So the historical lens is how we view history based on modern day. As I've told my previous classes, you don't look at history from an objective point of view. Objectivity is like 2 + 2 is 4. That's just what it is. You don't argue that. Now, granted, some people are going to be pedantic. It's like, well, if you go with the quantum, this, that. It's like, no, shut up. We're talking about basic math. But if you look back and look at history, or really look at any human event, which technically all human events are history once they're done, you can't look at it as like a cut and dry A thing caused B to happen, because humans are involved. So there's always going to be more than one point of view. Therefore, it's subjective. It's subjective to the interpretation of the person interpreting it. Now, when we're talking about history, it's not just that bias, but also the bias of our modern day. So, say during the Cold War, if we look back at Athens and Sparta when they were fighting one another, we would look at Sparta, which, while they technically won, they eventually fell to the wayside. And we'd be like, well, they must have been like how Russia is. Therefore, Russia's going to eventually fall apart, which, I mean, I guess you technically did. Because that's all we could think about was scary Soviet Russia. In the modern day, the biggest social issue is social equality. So we look back and say, okay, well, when you look at history, it's typically going to be, what were the rich and powerful men doing? You know, again, Alexander the Great, and like Aristotle, and, you know, King Leonidas, and yada, yada, yada. Okay, great. What about everybody else? What about, like, the peasants, or the slaves, or the women that get left out of history? Well, it's there, just not in quite the amount of detail. So the book, this book specifically, always has a little section at the end of each chapter, or at least the end of each section of the chapter, that delves into, like, okay, well, what was everybody else doing? Like, what can we derive from the information that we were able to get from this era? And neither of these lenses is wrong. Neither of a way of looking at history is wrong. It just changes how we look at history. So obviously this doesn't change history, but why things happened, or at least how we view it, changes. So that's why it's, you know, the lens, because we're looking through the modern day into the past. Yay, people spamming me. Okay. History. Actually, again, while I was trying to sleep last night and my brain was just not wanting to sleep, I actually thought about this stupid quote. And unfortunately, thought about it more than just it's a joke and how it might actually be a thing. Like the backbone, that makes sense. Like, oh yeah, you're built, society's built upon its history because that's just how it works. Um, but the liver and the kidneys, like that filters toxins from your system, and history is a way to like distill out the worst parts of humanity and see how best to avoid that again. So in a way, this quote's right. Again, it's a joke quote from like a joke show, but yeah, I don't know, man. Something's weird. So yeah, why do we care about history? Why do we care about some guy who drank himself to death 2,000 years ago? The argument is those who fail to learn from history didn't repeat it, but I don't see many of us going out on horseback and taking over Greece and Persia. But it is our legacy. And knowing about the past helps us move forward. Alexander wasn't well liked by anybody. The Greeks hated him, the Persians hated him, his generals hated him. But he still ended up becoming one of the greatest generals, or just powerful men in general in history. And why? Well, that's why we study history. We figure out what led to these, I mean, I would say anomalies, but we have so many of these examples throughout history. Just to see what leads to a single person taking so much power, I guess you could say. And there's the highlights, of course: Alexander, Middle Ages, Renaissance, etc. But there's so much stuff in between we have to talk about. The cultures and the rise and fall of empires. And, okay, that's great, but why don't we just focus on the fun bits? Which, I mean, to be fair, I'm not super big into the really ancient stuff. I like pushing closer to medieval, but, that's just me. But because it's incomplete, everything has a reason for why it's going on. And again, you guys have heard me make this quote before. It's Lord of the Rings, but just the fight scenes. And again, we go extended edition. That's like a movie and a half already. It's great, but why? Why are they fighting? Who's fighting? What's at stake? Why is this castle important? Why is this tower got an eyeball? Why are there walking trees? And now that this disclaimer no longer applies to me, I can make the most important distinction. Why is the elf and dwarf, or why are the elf and dwarf aggressively flirting with one another? And to answer that question, you have to go all the way back to the Silmarillion. So, like I said, you gotta really dig into your history about why the elves and dwarves hate each other, and why these two macho men aggressively macho flirting while killing orcs is like a big deal, because they're getting along even though their races have hated each other for thousands of years. That's the whole thing. I know I'm talking about like fantasy now, but it's literally history. And it follows patterns that can't be looked at in small parts. The empires of Mesopotamia rose and fell. Greece was overcome by Macedonia after they fought off the Persians twice. We had Rome taking lots of ideas from Greece that fell apart to the Middle Ages, rising and falling and getting the plague. We got the Renaissance, leading to exploration, and eventually a religious revolution that would lead to the Age of Exploration, which would lead to eventually America and further European involvement across the world, which goes into next semester. And so when we start next semester, those of you that decide to stick with me for that, we start at like Europe's murdering itself over religious issues. Um, because we have to start somewhere, but like it all leads back into this, and it goes all the way back. It's very difficult to just start at a place. Which is why I like fictional stories where there's a believable, well-built lore, especially when it's just like alternate Earth history, because I know the history until the split, so I already know all the background. um, it's like, okay, I know it. I know everything until this happens, so now I only need to know all that, rather than freaking Warhammer 40k, where it's like 400,000 years of just like other stuff. Like 40,000, but whatever. Right? Can history predict the future? No. But it can help us make the future as good as possible, avoid the mistakes of the past, like a land war in Russia, or, letting an aggressive country take part of a country for concession's sake, and then everybody else will be okay. And that aggressive country totally won't then take the rest of the country and then proceed to try to take the rest of Europe. Totally won't happen. And as I'm pretty sure I mentioned this to you guys last semester, if Ukraine follows, Poland's next. Just put that out there. And yeah, history can be traced by its wars, and war never really changes, and if you get it, good for you. If you don't worry about it. Unfortunately, while it is a good quote and a great image, they don't go together. Right. Come to class. I know it's a little crowded in here, but if you make it to class, that'd be great. Attendance policy is the same as last time. If you miss 2 weeks in a row, I'll be asking if you're still in my class. So yeah, you know how this works. The material, all the material comes from the book. This is the first edition version of the book. I don't know. If you get the book, it will not look like this, but it will still have the same name. If your school's getting you the book, great. If not, if you want to get it as cheaply as possible. If you can't get it cheap, try to find it on an archive site, because they're out there. I don't remember the names of the archive sites, but you guys are probably better with the internet than I am at this point. There's archive sites with textbooks that are they're library archive sites specifically with textbooks like this. I highly encourage. That said, if you can't, oh well. Because again, all of the material for the test will be up here on the board. Now, some of the prompts for the papers will be out of the book, but just like last time, you can write the paper on whatever you want, really. The prompt for the test, the prompt coming out of the book is just kind of a holdover from when I was teaching upstate, where everybody was essentially given a book. So that was like the even playing field where I knew everybody had access to the book, where not everybody necessarily had access to even like the internet. So, do the exams and the papers. You know how this works. Ask questions. And you know how that works. If you have any questions, I'm not so much new to teaching, but everything's always work in progress with me. I'm always fixing things and editing things and making things better or worse. Email's not changed. Thank God, because I sure as heck can't remember it half the time. Um, it's just my name at fmarion.edu. And no, people can stack rocks without needing aliens, my dude. I won't say that. Statistically, it's very likely there's life out there besides us. But I feel like ancient civilizations can make things without us needing like some higher alien life to come and do stuff. Like,
And I feel people are suspicious because all the sides of the pyramid were equal up high. Like, no, did they use a circle to measure?
yeah, like,
Okay, but those rocks were huge.
Yeah, they wore them out still.
they were right there. Yeah, and like they lived. Well, I was gonna say in a desert, but like it wasn't actually as deserty then as it is now. But like when you live in a place where all you've got is waiting for the river to flood and then doing the farming, what else you got to do but like study the sky and see how the stars move? Like everybody back then was an expert in like astronomy. Pretty much, and like understood how the math worked. Um, it wasn't like some cosmic being coming down to telling them how things work. They were smart. They understood. And saying that it has to have been some higher power coming down to tell them because our ancestors were stupid is insulting to ancient people, in my opinion. So that's just how I feel. Is there life elsewhere? Probably. Was there some super intelligent alien species that came and like did everything on Earth pre like the 1500s? Or God, if you want to go with the stupid mud flood shit, pre like 1800s? No. Absolutely not. Well, this is good for you.
It seems just like all the classes have the other people that become representatives.
Oh yeah,
So my classmates are taking psychology class in my class.
yeah, it's what's her name?
Whoever was that was meant to do that.
Miss Williams. Yeah, she got hurt last year. Wasn't able to be here.
How in his class is it?
You know, your classmates,
Yes.
they have a separate psychology class.
Maybe.
Your psychology class.
Because that's like the class that's...
So you've seen them here.
No,
Not here.
no, I haven't been in the class, but I've been going a lot.
And it said it's breaking up something.
Yes.
Huh.
And it says I have work to do for him.
Oh,
Sunday.
excellent.
You know, I learned it.
No, my dad told me to do it. Like it was just there when I went to the lecture.
This is back in the kid.
So like,
What did you even get in this class? Your birthday.
like, nothing. Well, I was never there. I never turned anything in.
Yeah, I think I remember saying.
It was really good.
This is nice. 4.4.
Okay, well you come to class every single day and you
I
make
got
your
a
work.
100 until I'm final and don't know how.
Um,
I don't know how.
Pretty good.
How about your there's no extra points. Where did they get that good at this from?
I didn't even turn in the last paper. So,
Yeah, he was like sitting there like panicking with like last night, dude, sending the paper. Nobody sent in the papers. I don't know. Like 6 different people that didn't send their the final paper to the class.
and he sent out a mass email and was like,
Like,
hey
if
guys,
you
turn the paper in.
Yeah.
I understand.
All right. The syllabus for this one is about the same as the other. You know, we're here Monday, Wednesday, 8:30, room 505. Again, if there's any if we end up having any online students, that part doesn't apply to you guys. And this is just, again, this is stolen with consent from another professor, so this, I mean, this is all there, but this isn't my stuff. Wow, this is, this is all next semester. I'm not going to change it, but that's next semester. Anyway, and I have done that. Why not? Mini Europes, Volume 1 to 1715. Whatever. Yeah, this is the first edition. Again, if you guys get your hands on it, it probably won't look like this. But this is all the information if you want to find it. I might post some stuff on Blackboard. Maybe. Not likely. What may end up happening is I might show some videos during class that will have information on them that will be on the test. So remember that. Everybody's got psychology. Again, just like last time, 3 tests if I can swing it, 2 papers and the final. Everything's weighed the same, and you get to drop 1. So if you do well, you can drop one of the papers. If you don't do well, whatever you don't do well on, one of them you can drop, so you only get 1 freebie. Yes?
If a teacher puts in a grade for you and like you didn't do it, but the class is over, can they change it or like do anything about that?
Yeah. We have a grade change form. We have to go to main campus and like put in like hard paper copy of like what grade we gave you and then what grade it's supposed to be. But it needs to be done within a year of the test being the grade being done. Yeah. So like if you feel like a grade is an error, just let the professor know. There's mine. Speaking of which, there's my Francis Marion account again. Tutoring Center, that's on the main campus. Writing Center is also on main campus. So if y'all want to go to Florence, you can take advantage of that. Attendance, again, this is 4 in a row, not 4 total. If those of you that are going to be in the online section, I'll have a like discussion day thing when we have a full week, so you'll see that later. That's attendance for my online students. Exams, again, you guys have seen it. Multiple choice, short answer, extra credit at the end. The final will be just like last time. It's just going to be another test. It's not going to be cumulative. It's just going to be whatever material we have left after the test before it. So yeah, just like last time. I don't think we're really going to have like discussion days and whatnot. This is just extra stuff. Don't do plagiarism, for the love of God. This is so much work for me. And it's also really stressful because it's it could potentially not only get you a 0 for the grade, it could get you kicked out of the class, it could get you kicked out of the college, it could get you banned from ever going to college ever. Don't plagiarize. It's the academic equivalent of like a major crime. If you ever hear about like a major publisher or like an author or something like engaging in plagiarism, that's something you can be sued for. That's something you can lose your entire livelihood over. Obviously, at this level, it's just like, hey, don't do that. That's that's not how we work here. But it is taken seriously. Now, technically, and this is what my professor did to us to scare us half to death. If you cite something incorrectly, that's plagiarism. I'm not going to do that. If you cite something at all, I'm happy about that. If you paraphrase something from a website and you give me a little citation at the end, a little MLA parentheses, author's name, page number, or if it's an article online, just like the author's name or just what the article's name was, because sometimes they don't have names of authors from websites. That's fine. That's all I need. Just make sure you give me a citation. Make sure you give me a bibliography at the end of where you got all your stuff from. That's it. That's all I need. I've only had 2 major instances of plagiarism since starting work here. One was really blatant, where I believe 3 students turned in the same paper. And even though my classes were full back then, and they were, at least 2 of them were in different classes, like, I'm going to notice when I read the exact same paper. Maybe. It's been a little while. I know 2 of them had the same last name. So, like, there was very little question as to why these were the same paper. And another one was like clearly not how this student wrote. And I typed in like the first sentence on Google, and it was just an article. They just copied an article and pasted it into their paper. It's like, do that. You can quote, you can give me a sentence, you can give me a whole paragraph from a thing, as long as you put it in quotations and you cite it and you say, so and so said this, and this is a part of something that I'm going to talk about. But you can't use an entire article as your paper. They did not. They did, though, put that article in the works cited, so it was even easier to find. So technically, they put it in the works cited, but they just copied and pasted the entire article. It was bad. That one was laziness. The other one I was especially upset about because it was like, you're going to give me the same paper 3 times? Guys, y'all, come on. Again, you guys have already had me. No. Formatted and everything. It was formatted the same wording, all of it. It was just they printed it out 3 times. No. You would think. I think this was right before COVID. So this was like 2019. I'm surprised we're that high. Oh, I thought it was Mississippi. Okay. Yeah. Race to the bottom. So yeah. The main thing is, if you're pulling something from a text, cite it. If you're not plagiarize, sorry, paraphrase, different word, cite it. If if you've got a paragraph and you use information from an article or whatever, even if you're not using their words, cite it anyway. But you can't oversight a paper. Otherwise, it's fine. I mean, you guys have had me. You guys, I've not had any issue with you guys, but just it stresses me out. I don't need more stress. Don't plagiarize. I think that's it. Oh, do I not? I don't have it on here. I thought I had it in my. I guess not. Okay, hold on. Look. Oh, it must be for 104. Right. So, here are the two paper topics. Just go ahead, throw them out there for now. First one is Athens and Sparta. Second one is the High Mark of the Middle Ages. Just like last time, you're more than welcome and in fact encouraged to do something else if you want to. Now granted, as small as these classes are going to be this semester, I'm not going to run into my usual exhaustion of getting 30 Athens versus Sparta papers. But you're still welcome to choose really anything up to, really the Middle Ages for this one. Now again, like here I say page 273, there's a thing with a sidebar on the High Mark of the Middle Ages. Don't worry about that. That's something we'll talk about when we get there. Just really all of chapter 9, it talks about like this part of the Middle Ages where things were good right before we hit the Black Death and everything was terrible. Yeah. But again, it's real open. Now, I know you noticed that I moved it from the end of October to the beginning, because here we go. No. Yes. Yes. Our fall break is this week, or at least these 2 days of October. So I wanted to go ahead and get it done. It's going to be the 1st. I wanted to go ahead and get it done before fall break, so that I have the fall break to read the papers. And also because if I had it at the end of October, we are going to be running into the end of this. This is the end of the semester, basically. The end of this week is going to be Thanksgiving break, and then finals the next week. So rather than you have a paper due here and then a paper due here, like within a month, I figured I'd just go have one at the beginning of October and then at the end of November to give you more time in between. Spaced out better. Again, 2 to 3 page double space. You've done this before. It's not difficult. I think that's it. And you guys are still done way early. Any questions about anything? Thinking you guys have had my class. You know how I do things. I can't help you with that.
I'm pretty sure what happened is, in this class where Connor or Lisa, this is the same class that they did last week, reset class.
Oh.
Okay, so you're
I remember there too.
you're in there too, okay. So,
We've had a lot of technical issues with Blackboard. Well, more than just Blackboard. We have a lot of technical issues, period. So that might be part of it. What I tell my students every semester, the first week doesn't count. The first week, everything is going to be on fire to some degree. Apparently, it's really bad this semester. So if you've got technical issues, it'll be all right. Everybody's having them. If you're both in a psychology class you've already had, that's clearly a technical issue that can and will be fixed. So,
I'm not sure because I did scan my dudes. I'm pretty sure this old probably just.
Yeah, I scanned mine too, but I'm pretty sure it's about. But it did make a noise, so it did
So
suck.
it always makes a noise. I remember one time I was asleep Friday, I was sitting there trying to use my school light. It was like, is it good beat? It's like,
it detects something there, yeah.
I